Welcome to the 165th broadcast of the t-roh Show. As your host, Keith. We got some interesting stuff for everybody today. We're going to be talking about the corruption in the courts, but that's nothing new. But what we're going to be talking about is showing you actually where the corruption's coming from, how it operates, and everything else, all the way back to the city of London. Okay, which, by the way, has been laundering drug money for many, many years. The Bank of England has been doing that. So, and this is connected all the way to the Federal Reserve, the lawyers, and the courts under the control of the Pope, under the control of canon law. Okay, so just so everybody knows, because he's over there kissing butt with Rothschild and all that stuff, but he kind of manages all of it. That's the Pope himself. So let's get to it, and you wouldn't believe how far this is going to be hilarious. You wouldn't believe how far a judge or judges and lawyers will go to hide the truth, to lie for how long they'll do it. It's been 2 years. This whole case I'm about to share with you, we've been watching for 2 years, we've been working on for 2 years. Just for the hell of it, we've been messing with their courts. We could have shut it down a long time ago with human rights violations, but we've been messing with their courts just to see what they would do and how long they'll play the game in Utah. Okay, this is in Utah. The holy Utah, the holy Mormons, and all that crap, right? Well, don't believe it, because they're just as corrupt as anybody else, and they're just as hypocritical as anyone else. So anybody says, "Well, I'm a Mormon," and all that, and don't come on, you guys are just as bad as everybody else. So just give it up. So anyway, we're going to give you a brief history of this. This is over a divorce case, and this is involving Lanny Talbot. He's a direct descendant of Benjamin Franklin, believe it or not. And he's an ambassador for the government of the United States of America. And he gets paid in continental dollars. Now, I want to show you something, what they did. This has been, many documents in this case. Most of them are irrelevant as to what we're going to be talking about. But so I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to show you something that's very interesting as it pertains to the continental dollar. It says Talbot. This is a background. This was done. Okay, that's on page 4. So this was sent by the Attorney General. All right. So whenever you see the word Attorney General, after you see this case, you're going to see Sean De Reyes, liar Attorney General, because that's what he is. He's a freaking liar. That dude's the biggest liar I've ever seen. Okay. So he even tried to paint Talbot as one of those, I don't know what they call him, a sovereign citizen crap. Okay, it's a joke, by the way. That's just a smear communist thing that they operate under. So he wanted to put this in the order of the judge. He also memorandum decision in order granting state defendants motion to dismiss. And remind me, okay, I'm going to cover this because it's coming right to my head right now. These guys, the governor and the Utah Attorney General and Judge Brody Kiesel and Holly Ramsey and all that, state defendants, they want this because they always go to 12b-6, fair to state a claim, blah, blah, blah. They always do that. And they start claiming judicial immunity. All of them do, right? Okay. As required by the Governmental Immunity Act of Utah. No, there's no such act, folks, because in order for, let me get to this part just before I say this. Remember the state troopers that shot through the floor, and now they're according to those other people in their apartment, never went down to see if they were okay, and then they came back and started claiming immunity. All right, they don't have immunity. None of them have immunity. Okay, just not one officer in the state has any immunity whatsoever. Why? Because they've never read the law of nations. In order to have that immunity, you have to be able to what? Oh, mint and coin your own money. Y'all don't do that. You ignore that part of your Constitution. Therefore, you have no immunity. You've already forfeited your immunity when you hired a private bank, foreign private bank, operated by who? Hmm. That would be the Bank of New York Mellon and the City of London under the Bank of England. Once you did that, you forfeited your immunity. It's over. You have zero immunity unless you mint your own money or make your own money or even, hell, print your own money. Create your own money, but you don't have that. Okay? So, no immunity. You have zero immunity. The 11th Amendment is a joke. They've been play acting, folks. Play acting that the 11th Amendment means something. They don't print their own money. They don't have their own money. So, they're not a state. It's called a failed state when you don't have your money. That's the way it works. Okay? You're using a private corporation's money. That's not your money. That's their money. I'll tell you what. You want to believe that you have immunity, some kind of judicial immunity, no matter what bullshit act that you put in there. Oh, go audit the Federal Reserve. See how far you get. They have immunity under the City of London. You don't. You are what they call a banker bitch. You do what you're told and you shut the hell up by your banker. Okay? That's just it. We've had judges in this case go, "We're not subject to federal law." Really? Okay, well, so I guess what? What, you're a sovereign citizen? Is that what you say you are? You're a sovereign citizen. You're not subject to the federal corporation or federal venue. Is that what you're telling us? I don't think so. Are you when you project that on somebody else, are you attempting to murder them because you're marking them for death? Because they're in your venue, it's considered a domestic terrorist, and you can shoot any one of them you want. I believe so. And you do that why? Because you're the banker bitch. You do what you're told. And now you're trying to pass that slavery when you guys were traders and sold yourselves. Okay? And now you're trying to pass that on to everybody else as if they have the same obligations. No, you're the trader. That's not passable. That you can't transfer that to somebody else. You've already committed the traitor act. Okay? So here we go. Remember this Brody Kissel guy, okay? This guy's a real piece of work. And he's a liar. He's the one that's been lying too. All of them been lying for 2 years now. Okay? And we expected, by the way. We're not mad. We're not mad at all because we've been playing with you for 2 years. We've expected you to lie for 2 years and to hide all this. To hide what I'm getting ready to show everybody else. We expected that of you. So it's not like you've put us under any kind of pressure because we're coming after all of you for human rights violations, by the way. Every one of you. You don't have immunity from that. You can't claim immunity from that. Within the next 6 months, every one of you, more than likely, after trial, will have human rights violations on your record and on your person. And there ain't a damn thing you can be able to do about it. Including Marie Talbot. Okay? So here we go. Here they said, here's the background. So this is what they did, folks. Talbot is a party of an ongoing divorce case that began with his filing of a divorce petition against his wife, Marie Talbot, in 2008. A decree of divorce was entered then by assigned Judge Paul Lyman of the Utah 6th District Court later that year. Okay, and keep in mind, folks, this woman here, and I'm going to say it right here out in front of everybody, this is a gold digging bitch. Okay? She is asking for basically everything. She was married to the guy for 4 years. Okay? And this is why men don't like to marry women in America, because this is the kind of woman you get. She's trying to ask for his insurance policy. She's wanting $70,000. She's wanting all this kind of crap. For what? She tells him, I was a great asset to your marriage. No, you're a gold digging whore because you crawled into his, you know, Laney is a really good guy and he's extremely kind to everybody and he'll help anybody. He'll remove, he'll take the shirt off his back and give it to you, man. That's just kind of guy he is. So you little lying whore, jumped into his window the first night you met him and did him because you saw that he was really kind and you knew that your evil ass could take advantage of it. And you saw that he had a little money. Now you're trying to take away everything he has. Okay? And you've been doing it for 2 years now. And you're not going to succeed because you're going to be added in to those human rights violations. Just letting everybody know. Okay? Now, this is what they did. Entered by assignment Judge Lyman of the Utah 6th District Court later that year. On November 10th, 2011, Talbot was found in contempt of court by Judge Lyman for not abiding by the insurance requirement of the decree. She wanted, guess what, folks? She wants to be listed as the beneficiary on his insurance policy so she gets money when he dies. That's a gold digging whore. You want to sue the t-roh show? Bring it on. All right, there, Little Miss Talbot. All right, attorney's fees were awarded to Marie Talbot along with the order that Talbot comply with within 2 weeks. And by the way, she does this to everybody that she marries, just letting everybody know. Several more years proceedings went by, and the case was reassigned to Judge Kiesel. Talbot was eventually found in contempt again on October 5th, 2018 for not complying with the insurance requirement, not paying attorney's fees, and not paying the judgment amount in the divorce decree. Why? Because he didn't agree to it. They kind of forced it on it, you know? Okay, then he says, Talbot filed a notice of appeal on October 16, 2018, and the case proceeded through the Utah Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals affirmed the district court's contempt order. Talbot filed a writ of certiorari. I have a real hard time with that word, and I think a lot of people do. With the United States Supreme Court, the writ was denied May 30th, 2019. The district court scheduled a review to which Talbot did not appear. Okay, now what does it look like, folks? What does it look like? It looked like Talbot was eventually found in contempt again in October 5th, 2018 for not complying with the insurance requirement, putting the crazy bitch on as a beneficiary, which they could have done by court order. They didn't need him to do it. If it was legal or lawful, why would they need Talbot to do it, right? If it was a court order, they could have just ordered the insurance company to change the beneficiary. But it wasn't legal to do what they were doing. Not paying the attorney's fees and not paying the judgment amount in the divorce decree. So how they wrote this was little liar attorney general of the state of Utah that he was appealing this contempt and for the non-complying or the appealing the divorce decree, and he wasn't at all. That is not what happened, folks. Not what happened at all. Now you're going to see why the initial part of this show, now all these questions are going to come, or answers are going to be clear to you by the time I'm finished. Okay? He did not file a notice of appeal for contempt or for the insurance requirement or not paying attorney's fees or not paying the judgment amount in the divorce decree. He didn't do that at all. He did mention contempt. And I'm going to show you what he did in the appeals. He did mention it, but what he was saying is that the contempt did not exist in any way, shape, or form. Well, how could that be? He wasn't in contempt because he tried to pay him and they wouldn't accept it. And then they hid it. They hid him trying to pay this whole thing off. They hid it, folks. All the way through for the last 2 years, they've been hiding the fact that he tried to pay. And that Mr. Kiesel and little Miss Marie Talbot and all the rest of the cronies that are involved, or Marie Talbot, have been lying for 2 years. Because what he really did was this. He walked into the courtroom and he said, "Here, I've got 4,500 in continental dollars, and I'm here to pay this off." The 4,500 in the exchange equaled over 70,000. It'd be 75,000 over what he owed to pay this off. And what did little Marie Gold Digger do? I want USD. Right when she did that, no, I don't want that payment. I want USD. Okay. Number one, folks, there's no such thing as a US dollar. That went out in 1971. All they have is Federal Reserve notes now. Federal Reserve completely took over and they control the whole money system. Private bankers that you never voted for and that you can't audit, by the way, took over the whole thing. And she was asking for something that Lanny Talbot couldn't give her because they don't exist. Haven't existed since they went off the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1971. It went full Federal Reserve note. Basically, went full retard. So, in order to get around this, in order for this to happen where they could get off and get rid of the USD altogether, and by the way, if you don't have any money, you don't have a country. It's over. You can't bring in the Federal Reserve note and say, "Oh, you have a country and a nation," because it doesn't work that way. You don't have a country if you don't have any money, if you don't have your own money. Okay, just keep that in mind when you think of the EU. When Spain went off the peseta and they went to the EU, bam, they have no country. It's over. Spain's out. That's why all the borders disappeared. Get it, folks? All right. So here is their policy. This is the Federal Reserve policy when it comes to this. Because why? Because they write public policy, and then they tell their corporation to say, "Hey, y'all do this," or because why? Because you're our bitch. Okay. Now, the Committee for the Government of the United States of America addresses the claim to accepting U.S. currency only by courts. Now, just keep in mind the uppercase of. This is in the theme, so this is not the correct thing. This is in the theme. It's supposed to be lowercase o. It says here, here's one, and I've done this before. I believe I've gone through this. That the district court accepts payments by credit card, U.S. money order, cashier check, or U.S. currency only. Can't do that, dipshit. Natalie, you're a dumbass. Why is Natalie a dumbass? Wherein the claim made through the mail by Natalie Simpson, which is what? Oh, a federal crime, but it doesn't matter. Because why? Because they're banker bitches. The claim is arbitrary and above all without any merit. This particular case involves offering the aforementioned court continental dollar national currency that is established as legal tender for debts public and private. Here's the link, and here's the link for that. And if you want to look at this or find this, just put in U.S. currency. It'll come up with this title here in the newspaper. Now it says here, this was what the Masonic Lodge of New York, headquartered on Manhattan Island, says through its U.S. Congress about the currency issue. It says here, House Joint Resolution 192, and this is how it states: every provision contained or made with respect to any obligation which purports to give obligee a right to require payment in gold or a particular kind of coin or currency or an amount in money of the United States measured thereby is declared to be against public policy, and no such provision shall be contained in or made with respect to any obligation hereinafter occurred or incurred. A particular kind of coin or currency. You get it now? You don't have to use Federal Reserve notes. Okay? You have no right, Miss Marie Talbot, to claim U.S. currency or U.S. this or that. Neither do you, Natalie, you couple of dumb shits. Okay? Now, the UCC is a model code so that it does not have a legal effect in the jurisdiction unless UCC provisions are enacted by the individual state legislatures as statutes. Okay? Currently, the UCC in whole or part has been enacted with some local variation in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and Virgin Islands. There you go. So it's there. If tender of payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument, which means, does Marie have the right to enforce the divorce decree? Well, probably, yeah. If that's what happened, we weren't arguing that at all. We were saying, here, pay her off, shut her up. She can go on to the next victim, go suck the blood out of him. Okay? So, is entitled to enforce the instrument and the tender is refused, there is discharge. To the extent that the amount of the tender of the obligation and an endorser or accommodation party having the right to recourse with respect to the obligation to which the tender relates. Okay? Then the U.S. Treasury chimes in, says the same thing. Says the same thing and everywhere else. It's a public trial, blah, 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 Article 4. Okay? So we've been sitting here watching a guy say, no, I never got into the cake. I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea who cut a piece of cake and started eating it with cake icing all over his face for 2 years. Now, here's the question. Did we, in any way, shape, or form, claim, now you get it now? Talbot was eventually found in contempt. Then later on, he goes down in about, 6 or 7 pages that he's some kind of sovereign citizen and doesn't want to abide by the orders of the court. That's slander. So the state attorney general for the state of Utah is a slanderous liar. That's what he is. In other words, he's no different and no better than the piece of shit on my shoe that I step on and quash. I don't like lying pieces of shit, especially if they have the responsibility of an attorney general. You have no honor, boy. And we need to bring you behind the barn and whoop the shit out of you to teach you a little lesson. Now, I have to say, no, we're not going to go attack the poor little communist attorney general of the state of Utah. That is a reference to what needs to happen to that boy to make him grow up and be a man. That's man stuff going on there, okay? That's what he needs. He needs his little ass whoop to straighten his little ass out. Because the boy is a liar, big time liar. And we got you freaking red-handed. Red-handed, boy. You got cake all over your face. That you've been lying your ass off. And none of your people have any freaking immunity whatsoever. You lying son of a bitch. You just dishonored the whole country. Your family has no honor. And you have no honor. And you deserve an ass whooping. That's the way it is. Because your mother and father didn't do it. They tried to get you a law degree. Oh, my son is he's a law degree, he's a lawyer, so blah, 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 blah. Not realizing, oh, my son's a piece of shit and a lying piece of crap. And try to paint somebody and put a target on his ass so when cops see him, they might try to assassinate him. Because you're trying to hide the fact that your contempt was without merit. Then he tries to go to federal court, and they didn't even allow him a jury trial. They just sat there for a month and a half and said, we're going to dismiss this. And then you guys came back and go, see, the judge says we're right. Well, that judge in the federal part is a piece of shit because he knew what he was doing. That means all of you are pieces of shit and you all stick together. Now, people may listen to this t-roh show, and you know what they're going to be saying in their head every time they deal with pieces of shit like you? Is that's exactly what they did to me. And they did the same thing here, and they did the same thing there. And there are millions of cases the same way, folks. We're telling the rest of the world because the t-roh show is listened to by many other countries. The U.S. courts are pieces of shit. We're trying to tell you, don't believe anything that comes out of them. Whenever they want to hide something, they go to the man was disobedient and didn't show the court any respect whatsoever, and he's a sovereign citizen domestic terrorist. When it's not true. We caught you bigger than shit. Mr. Cake on your face, we got you. You've been had. And the evidence is right in front of everybody, right there. Here's the appeals, folks. It says here, the case was already concluded by the lower court and appellant was structured after the conclusion of lower court. The best guess is they did not want to reopen any further action by appellant whereby the payment accepted was not settled. The issue of private corporate body politic in fasci could not be redressed any forms of court issues or many other things. Okay? Payment accepted was not settled. Boom. We addressed it. And then we addressed that really they didn't have any authority to issue any contempt. Even if he was in contempt, they don't have the authority to issue a contempt. That's what we said. We weren't saying that that we were questioning anything. We were saying you just didn't have the right to do it. But you hid it. You hid that, didn't you? You hid that, didn't you, boy? All right? You did. You lied. It's called lying by omission. This is what should have happened, folks. And I'm going to conclude this so you don't have to sit here and listen to me yelling for the rest of the show. Because I've been waiting 2 years to get a hold of these pieces of shit. Because we've been watching them for 2 years. 2 years, very patient. Since 2018. Very patient. Okay? Watching them over and over. And we knew they were going to do it because we know all of them are pieces of shit. And we know all of them operate in the Federal Reserve districts. They don't operate in the states. They operate in the Federal Reserve districts because they work for the Federal Reserve. And how many times do we bring up the Federal Reserve? We haven't for the last 2 years, have we? Didn't think we knew all about all that, did we? We've had people tell us, well, you don't understand the bank fraud. You think we don't understand the bank fraud, really? We had to stay quiet because we're watching these guys. And we've got 2 years of evidence of these boys lying their ass off, all of them, to hide the fact that Mr. Talbot walked in there and said, I'm going to pay you. Here's $4,500. This is equivalent of $75,000 in your, and I'm going to paraphrase this, in your piece of shit money that you've got in an exchange, your little Federal Reserve notes that you guys print out of thin air, by the way. And that should settle the case. So what did little Marie Talbot do? I want USD, right? And she didn't want the Continental dollars. So what does the judge come back and say? Well, you need to pay in USD. We're looking for USD. And then this is what he did. This is what Judge Kissel did. This was the funniest part. He's going to go tell Dad. That's exactly what he was doing. I'm going to have this investigated by Secret Service. That's what he tells Talbot, right? He's trying to threaten him. I'm going to have this investigated. Go investigate, asshole. 30 days later, guess what happens? Nothing. Nothing. All right, Kissel, you went to tell Dad. What did Dad tell you? All right? Dad told you it's legal tender. and it was legal, and you fucked up, and you violated public policy. Oh, you're not subject to federal law. Are you some kind of sovereign citizen? You don't believe the federal law makes any has any validity? You two-faced lying piece of shit. So this is what he should have done. Let's give you a little lesson, Kissel, as to what you should have done. According to public policy, which every one of you pieces of shit are in violation of. And you tried to hide that for 2 freaking years. And guess what? You've been played and you've been had and you've been caught. And that's the way it works. All right, boy? Now, this is what, let me give you a little lesson here. What should happen? He should have looked over and looked at Marie and said, ma'am, do you realize that if you don't accept this money, that there's a full discharge here, according to public policy, and that it's been discharged, it's over. Do you realize that? Well, little Miss Gold Digger, well, that's not fair. I'm going to sue. I'm going to do this. You know what she's going to do, right? Because she's looking for money. She's been selling her ass for 4 years to this guy, so he owes her prostitution money, I guess. Well, you know, what the hell, right? That's what gold diggers usually are. Anyways, they're just legal prostitutes. So he should have ended it right there. And he says, however, if Judge Kissel had any freaking balls whatsoever, he could have done this. Ms. Talbot, this is what I can do for you. If you accept this payment here, we're going to do a full discharge. I'm going to write an order to the bank that when you go down to the bank, because the bank doesn't have the authority to violate public policy either, or does it? And I'm going to go ahead and write an order, and you give them this, and they're going to credit your account the exchange rate, and therefore this is paid for. See, if Kissel had any balls and he had any honor, he would have done that. But he has no balls, and he has no honor. He's a lying piece of shit. Okay, all of them are, all the way up to the governor. And governor, you don't have any freaking judicial immunity. You're full of shit, and so are you, Mr. Attorney General. You're full of shit. You jumped in when you shouldn't have. Okay, because these people weren't being sued; they were being sued in their individual capacities. Although I think the guy who was doing this was attaching your official capacity. So you hopped on that, right? Found a way out. Don't you think that may have been once you were told that the DNC signed a decree and a declaration to communism in 1976? You guys tried to hide that too, right? DNC ordered you to do it. So you stepped and fetched it, buddy. Isn't that what happened? You don't think that wasn't a setup? Dumbass. All right. Folks, we put the 1976 Declaration of Interdependence signed by all the Democrats and brought the DNC into it in the federal side to put the communism issue on the record. They hid that all over the place. All of a sudden, the DNC disappeared, and the judge was dismissing the case. See, folks, they're not judicial departments. They're not of, by, and for the people. They're controlled by political parties. That's what Nazis did. Get it? Courts are controlled by them. And the bankers. They're all working together against you. We have evidence upon evidence. All of them are lying. Oh, by the way, Mr. Attorney General, you're a little sovereign citizen thing. We just might come after you for attempted murder on that one. You have no immunity from attempted murder. Okay, they're slick. So, at any rate, as far as we're concerned, this woman was paid. There was no contempt. The attorney's fees were in there, and they could have taken them. And the judgment and the amount of the divorce decree could have done it. And not complying with the insurance requirement, Kissel, if you have any balls, boy, and your order was worth a shit, send that directly to the insurance company and have them change the beneficiary by court order. You get it, shit for brains? But you can't do it because it's not a legal order, and you know it. All right? So, folks, this is what they're trying to get done. And you know what? If they pull this shit again and they don't go away, which we've got some other things, other irons in the fire, just messing with them to watch them. I love sitting there watching somebody say they didn't get into the cake with icing all over their cake. It's hilarious. It actually belongs on America's Funniest Videos because a lot of videos on there doing that when they're watching little 2-year-olds go, "No, I didn't do a thing. I was not in the cake." And he's got cake and icing all over his face. And he's got all over his fingers. That's this guy here, Mr. Judge. He screwed up, and all he had to do was atone for it, and everything would have been fine. Now, what does this do, folks? This means that every attorney and every judge and all the courts are being run by a foreign power. And that foreign power goes, the judge and the courts and everything is a judicial district of the 12 federal judicial districts of the Federal Reserve. Or federal districts of the Federal Reserve. Sorry, there's no judicial in there. There's 12 of them. They're operating there. That Federal Reserve is attached to Bank of New York Mellon. And the Bank of New York Mellon is attached to the Bank of England. And the Bank of England has been laundering drug money for a very long time. That's what got them through the 2008 bubble. I have a whole article on it. Okay? So that's the way this works. So your judiciaries are not independent. That's a lie. They're controlled by the bankers, and they're not independent at all. That's the way it works. And that's how this works. And that what we're trying to do is establish where the people establish their own judicial departments. And when you do that, you get smeared. Since and this is a translation of what they actually say. Since you're not a traitor to your country, we're going to call you a sovereign citizen, a domestic terrorist, and we're going to put you on a freaking list. So when cops pull you over, you got 15 of them, and if you let me see your hands, put it on the seat, open the door. You know how they do that? Give you double orders. Put your hands on the wheel. You put your hands on the wheel. Now open the door. How the hell are you going to open the door? You got your hands on the wheel. So they start shouting 2 different orders at you and then shoot you. That's how they do it. And say, "Oh, he wasn't complying with the orders that we were giving him, so he deserved the death penalty." What law in this world says it's okay to kill somebody or to murder them or to execute them for not following an order when you're giving them double and triple orders? Put your hands on the wheel. Let me see your hands. Put your hands on the wheel. Open your door. How can you open the door if you put your hands on the wheel? Put your hands on the wheel. Open the door. Put your hands on the wheel. Open the door. Bam, 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 bam. That's what they do. That's called an assassination. By who? Banker bitches. Y'all get that? So, folks, the continental dollar is perfectly legal. There's nothing wrong with it at all. If not, Talbot would have been in jail. When Mr. Kiesel went to Dada and reported him and had him investigated. That's what he told him he was going to do. Told him everything was fine. That's when Kiesel knew he screwed up. And guess what, Kiesel? Your ego didn't allow you. See, your ego messed with your head. The ego got the best of you, and you've been wasting time for 2 years. Been lying your ass off for 2 years, flipping and flopping in bed, not telling your family you have no honor, and you're a lying piece of shit. And going around while everybody kisses your butt, and you know that you don't deserve it. You don't deserve any of that praise. That, oh, that's Judge Kissel. Kiesel, whatever the hell his name is. You've been catching all that. That's all a lie, folks. Every bit of that's a lie. He's not a real judge. He's just a little traitor. That's all he is. He's a traitor to his country because he took on and upheld and lied for the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve doesn't really matter if they're here or not. Okay, if we can have other currencies here, the Federal Reserve can be here all at once. I don't care. I don't think anybody else cares. If you want to do business, do business. No big deal. Pretty soon, people will realize that you're ripping them off and not do any business with you anymore. Okay, so then you kind of destroy your own industry. However, if you're not allowing a real lawful currency, money, into the country, that's when you just made all your boys traitors to their own country. So good luck with that. Good luck with all those traitors, because if they're going to do it to their own country and they'll do it to their own countrymen, they're going to damn well do it to you. So y'all have fun with that. You can have our trash, because that's exactly what they are. They're all traitors. Nobody's going to trust them. And they've been judged, and everything's good to go. So have fun with them. You can deal with all those traitors. They're easy to control. They'll do anything you want. They're good little boys. They're good little slaves. And just hire them a woman with fake boobs or something. They'll be happy. Okay. Or a boy, little boys. They might be into that. I don't know. We have no idea. But we do know that they can keep up a lie for 2 years with no problem, and put Laney through hell for 2 years with no problem, and keep stealing money out of his pocket for 2 years, trying to validate your money, Mr. Federal Reserve, that it's the only money in town, when guess what? It's not. And by denying the continental dollar, you're making your own money illegal. You're shooting yourself in the foot. And I think boys up at the top know that. It's just their little traitors down below don't. And folks, let's tell you what this was all about. This was actually a case between the government of the United States of America and the Federal Reserve. They've been sued for the last 2 years. And we took this as an example, and we knew what was going to happen. But we had to wait for it to work itself out and actually play out, so that what we knew was true. What we knew was going to happen is actually true. And we know that your boys, those little traitors down there, they screwed you over bad by not accepting the continental dollar. Just because it's not on the ABA, the American Bankers Association, doesn't mean it's not legal, folks. It doesn't mean it's not real. And anybody that doesn't accept the continental dollar is a traitor to their country by the facts. That's the way it works. Because you said the Federal Reserve notes are the only money in the only game in town. That's illegal. It's against public policy. See, Congress covered itself. Failed to tell the freaking judiciary. Same thing. All right, so that's it, folks. Now you know. Now you know what's really going on in the courts. Go offer them continental dollars and see what they do. It's hilarious. They sit there and watch them, and they'll get, I want USD. They start yelling. It's funny. Watch the little traders do their thing. You watch them all the time. Been doing it for a couple of years, and a couple of other cases too. Just to watch the little traders go. When I mean traders, I don't mean TRADERS. That's TRAITORS. That's a traitor to your country. That's what I mean, in case anybody had any question. Thanks for listening to the 165th broadcast of the t-roh Show. We have gotten down to the basics of this, and this has gone down to the line. This is the way it works. Right now, you have a banker, that's the bankers, that are trying to push communism, world communism in the country. Soros just came out with $1 billion to push more world communism, so he can be arrested at any time under the U.S. Communism Control Act thing, and our Communist Control Act thing, which is our national government's deal. He is subject to that. He's operating within our means and bounds. But guess what? We don't expect that to happen. Let's do a test here, okay? You heard this happen, right? We know agents listen to the t-roh show. So listen up, agents. If we don't see him arrested, then for communism, because of his $1 billion that's going against nationalism, okay, we don't see that. We know it's all rigged, guys. System's rigged. It's all BS. The whole system is bullshit. Okay? Bullshit. It's nothing. Your system's a joke because it's all rigged against them. All right, let's see what happens. Be interesting to watch, right? And every day, every t-roh, I'll just come out and say, hey, guess what? Soros hadn't been arrested yet for communism, even though he publicly said $1 billion towards eradicating nationalism, eradicating the country. Okay, and folks, it's not the U.S. holding the boundaries and borders. It's us. It's the government of the United States of America. Why? Because the U.S. doesn't have its own money, folks. It doesn't have its own money. It lost any kind of form of a joke of a sovereignty if it ever had it, when it no longer minted its own money. It's not a nation. It's not a country. It's bullshit. All right. So please realize that we're the only ones holding your country together. The government of the United States of America. Thanks for listening to the 165th broadcast of the t-roh show. We will see everybody next week.